Thanks, Chris. I'm Susan, compulsive overeater. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I love looking around a room, and when I look around a Zoom room, it's just really lovely to see everybody's faces, and I'm happy to be here. So I attended my first OA meeting August 2nd, 1966. That was 59 years ago. I like to tease and say I was 3. I wasn't. But I had just graduated high school. I was 17. I was 4 weeks shy of my 18th birthday. For me to tell my story with all these years, I would need 2 hours or more. And it's not important anyway. When I came in, I didn't want to stop eating compulsively. I never listened to the tradition, so I didn't hear that the only requirement for membership was a desire to stop eating compulsively. So I kept coming back. And I have kept coming back all these years because I found something here I had been looking for my whole life up till then, which was a family, a place where I felt like I belonged, a place where I could be accepted. Now, it wasn't like that all the time. I came in Los Angeles, in West Los Angeles. I was handed a gray sheet, which for those of you who don't know what it is, it was a diet. I mean, I thought it was a diet. It was a food plan. But it was a very structured food plan. And it's interesting because I've been reading Beyond Our Wildest Dreams with a sponsee, and I'm in the part of the book where they're talking about the carbohydrate, abstainers versus the regular OA people. I think regular OA meeting, but I was still handed that food plan. And I tried for 10 years to do that food plan, on and off, on and off, on and off. And the thing is, and Roseanne talks about this in the book, was that if you didn't abide by it perfectly, and that was expected, perfect, you had to be perfect doing it, then you had to start over. And so that was my first 10 years, was abstaining and starting over, and abstaining and starting over, and abstaining and starting over. And, after about 10 years, I had one more time where I deviated from the food plan. I ate sugar, and it was not at a mealtime. Not that it would have mattered whether it was or it wasn't at that point. And I called a woman I'd become close with in OA, and I told her what happened. And she said to me, "Aren't you sick and tired of starting over?" And it was like a light bulb went off. And I decided that I was never going to start over again. And I always like to clarify, that doesn't mean I gave myself permission to binge. I didn't. But what I did was I gave myself permission to not be perfect. And that was what made all the difference. That's what allows me to abstain. So October 12th of this year was, I celebrated 49 years of abstinence. And if you're shocked by it, you're no more shocked by it than I am. There's to 49 years time. And there's than that. But let me go back. So the short story, a couple years older than me, and we got married 5 months later. I had 2 children, and then we got divorced. That's a short story of a very long story. But, I was 25, just about 25 when I separated from my husband, and I had, my kids were 2 and 4. I didn't have a college degree. I had no skills. I had to go to work. I should have gone to work a long time ago because my husband didn't support us. I think we moved 10 times in 5 years, because we kept getting evicted. And so it was, I can't remember what year it was anymore, but, the hardest, my unwillingness to admit that it was hard. It was hard. And people would ask me, how are you doing? And I'd say, fine. You know what fine means? Effed up, insecure, neurotic, and egocentric. That was me. So, in 1976, I met my current husband. He's not in OA, but I met him at an OA event, which is kind of interesting. And we've been married 45 years this year, which is really quite amazing. Next year, it'll be 50 years since we met and since our first date. My children were 5 and 7 when I met him. They're now, I'm 77, so they're about to be 55 and 57, my kids. I had them young. I had first 11 months after. Yeah, it was 11 months after I got married. Everybody in my mother's friend group was counting on their fingers how many months it had been. That's what it was like in the late 60s. So, what the things that I've learned in this program are so amazing. I learned here in OA how to be a friend and how to have a friend. And even as I learned how to be a friend and have a friend, I wasn't very good at it for a very long time. But I did learn that here. I learned how to be a mother. I was a terrible mother. And I didn't do many of the things I said I wouldn't do. When you're growing up, you say, when I have kids, I'm never going to do that. Well, I did most of it, but not all of it. I did a lot of it, but not all of it. But after maybe the first 6 months of being in my relationship with my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, I stopped hitting my kids. I stopped yelling at my kids all the time. I had to learn, program had taught me to make amends, but it didn't teach me what it meant to make amends. To me, making amends meant to say, I'm sorry. But I didn't change my behavior. I didn't get the concept, and we didn't have the OA 12 and 12, which talks about this really well. I didn't get the concept of amending my behavior. And, it wasn't until I learned to take responsibility for my actions and to stop blaming my mother for who I'd become, because that's what I was doing. I had to stop blaming, and I had to take responsibility. And once I was able to do that, I was able to change my behavior. So I lived in Los Angeles until I was almost 40. So I did like 22 years in OA in Los Angeles. And I was in West LA where, I went to meetings with Roseanne, and she and I were friends. And my mother came with me to my first OA meeting. Roseanne was my mother's sponsor for this short period of time. My mom stayed in OA. My sister is the one who told me to come. She stopped coming. My mom stopped coming. I'm the only one who kept coming back. And it saved me in so many ways coming back, that I keep coming back. And if I've ever done anything perfectly, that would have to be it. I've kept coming back. So I don't know where I was going with this, but I was just going to talk a little bit about my moving around, not geographics. I stayed, I never thought I'd leave. But in 1988, my husband and I and our younger son, who had just graduated high school, moved to the Bay Area. And when I moved, what I knew to do to acclimate myself to a new area was to get involved in service. Had done a lot of service in LA, and it was 1988, and there was a convention coming, a Region 2 convention coming in 1990. That's where I met Cecilia. Was in California when she lived there, and we've known each other for a very, very long time. So I knew there was this convention coming, and so I volunteered to be on the convention, and I became the hotel liaison. And the nice thing about the Bay Area, I think there's like 7 intergroups in the Bay Area. And so people from all the different intergroups in that big area were involved in conventions. And it was really great. And then I went to a Saturday morning meeting, because that was my home group in Los Angeles. The meeting in Los Angeles was 100 people. The meeting in Marin County, where I was living, was maybe 20 people, if that. And it was a terrible meeting in my opinion. It was just my opinion. But they didn't have abstinence requirement for speakers. And the topics that the speakers chose were very negative. So, like, instead of a topic of how do you deal with anger, the topic would just be anger. So everybody would talk about their anger, it's that kind of thing. So, I didn't know what to do, and I went to a business meeting, and I raised my hand and said, I'd like to suggest that we have 6 months abstinence. Already involved in this convention committee, and they said we can't find people with 6 months of abstinence. Well, I knew that wasn't true because I met a lot of them. They may not have lived in our small little community, but they were all over the Bay Area. And what we ended up passing, the motion we ended up passing was 6 months, but a 3 months minimum if we can't find someone with 6 months. And I don't think we've ever had someone with less than 6 months since then. And that was 1988. So, long time. That's one of the best meetings in San Rafael and Marin County that there is, in my opinion. And it's remained my home group until I moved. So when I moved to the Bay Area, my older son stayed in LA, and he stayed there until about 11 years ago. And he and his husband wanted to buy a house, and they couldn't afford it. Long story short, that was headquartered here in the Charlotte area. And my other son, after he went away to law school, he lived at home all of his undergraduate years. When he went away to law school, he went to New York, and the job he got was in Florida, and he's been in Florida ever since. So he's the father of my grandkids. My grandkids have lived on the other side of the country from me all of their life, all of my grandmotherly life. And I never had a desire to live in Florida. My husband and I are in agreement on that. Neither one of us wanted to live there. But when we came to visit Rick and Jeff here in this area, I remember thinking to myself, oh, I could live here. This area is beautiful. I never thought I'd leave California. But, it's like, okay, my kids are both on the other side of the country now. My grandchildren have always been on the other side of the country. We have a house with stairs that you need to get to the area. I'm getting somebody here to help if, we need help. And I want to live near my kids. It was just, when I left my son in Los Angeles in 1988, I never thought I'd want to live near him. Our relationship was strained in so many ways. But I wanted to live near my kids, and I knew if I moved here, I'd be closer to my son in Florida as well. it took quite a bit of convincing to convince my husband he didn't want to leave. And it's a long story and it's his story, but he's finally agreed after we've lived here a very short period of time that it's the best thing we could have ever done. So I've been in North Carolina now for 8 years, almost 8 years, and I did the same thing when I moved here. I got involved in service. I went to the intergroup. I volunteered to be on the intergroup board. I volunteered to be a region. I volunteered to be a World Service delegate. That's what I do. That's what I did in Los Angeles. That's what I did in Marin County. But I hadn't done that level of service above the intergroup level for over 20 years when I moved here, because I had already done all that stuff. Service has been a huge part of my recovery. In Region 2, I was a region trustee. I was a region chair. I chaired a convention, and then I stopped doing that type of service. Like, okay, I'm done. But when I moved here, it's like, I need to get involved. I need to meet people. We have an intergroup in this area, but there's only 3 intergroups in the entire state of North Carolina. So it wasn't like the Bay Area where there were lots and lots of intergroups. And I went to the first region assembly in person that I went to. I remember thinking to myself, I don't even remember where it was, I'm not going to know anybody, but I'll get to know people. I reconnected with Alita, who was a former trustee, and Pam, who was another former trustee, who I had known from my years at World Service. So I didn't not know anybody. And the first assembly I was at, they elected me as bylaws chair, which really would have blown my mind. I would have never thought I'd want to do bylaws. So I got involved in region, and it's been one of the best, this type of service. I'm not as young as I was. I was in my 40s when I was doing the service at Region 2, and I'm just turned 77. So it's not the same. I don't have the same energy. I don't have the same, I never had great focus, but it's even worse, as I've gotten older. And I just finished 4 years as the Region 8 chair. And on Saturday was my last assembly. And I'm so relieved. And there's so many wonderful people in OA, no matter where I go. Any place in the world that I've gone, the people have just been incredible. I'm looking for the timer, there it is. I love that we have these Zoom meetings. I have sponsees that I don't have any in this area. They're all in different parts of the country, which is really interesting. I would have never thought. Before the pandemic, I went to 1 or 2 meetings a week. When the pandemic started, I actually started 2 Zoom meetings. I've never started a meeting at all in all the years I've been in OA, but I started these 2 Zoom meetings, and I helped to convert some other meetings to Zoom. And now, most weeks I go to 5 meetings a week. And Wednesday's the only day I don't go to a meeting, generally speaking, except for this week. And I feel like I've kind of been all over the place. It's just kind of where God directed me. But I'll just share in the last 3 minutes. Somebody shared about writing, and I laughed as her favorite tool because I was on a meeting earlier this week, and someone was talking about the telephone. I think the telephone being their least favorite tool, and I shared the telephone and writing are tied for me as my least favorite tools. But I write every day. I still almost every day. My practice has evolved over the years, and I have become more and more willing to do more and more. So my morning practice is I send my food into a food sponsor, which I haven't done in a bazillion years. I read 4 Today. No, I don't read 4 Today. I read Voices of Recovery. And right now I'm reading a story from the relapse and recovery book. I've gone through several different books, just reading one story a day. Then I write 5 things I'm grateful for. I write 3 things I like about myself. Right now I'm working through the 12-step workbook with a sponsee. We're doing it together. So I write a couple questions, 1 question or 2 questions from that book, or I have these prompts that I write on. And then I do my meditation, and then I do my prayers. And that's how I start my day. I'm not perfect at it because that's my character defect. My primary character defect is perfection. So I don't have to be perfect at it, but I do it pretty well. And, I sometimes will look at what I'm not doing instead of what I am doing. I've never done a daily 10th step. And I think, well, if I was really working a good program, I'd do a daily 10th step. Well, maybe that'll come. It's not happening right. I do have friends, people that I have. What's amazing is I have reconnected with people I've known for 50 years or 45 years and that I hadn't talked to in many, many, many years. And it's really great. It's like we knew each other whenever that was. And we don't all live in Los Angeles. Actually, none of us live in Los Angeles anymore. My closest friend from the beginning, the one who told me, aren't you sick and tired of starting over? She and I have reconnected. She still lives in California, and we do a Zoom call every month. We do a Zoom call once a month. And it's like amazing to me, that these relationships, I don't have relationships from elementary school or high school or any of that. My relationships are from OA. And I see the time is almost up. I do have relationships. I'm able to have relationships. Not how to be one among many. It's taught me how to share myself and to be considerate and caring and to live my life on a spiritual basis. I don't think I could have. It was not something I sought, but it was clearly something I needed. So I'm very happy to be here. Thank you so much for listening.